It is 9 a.m. and we will call this board meeting to order. If you all would please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Lord, we thank you for bringing all of us here this morning safely. We thank you for what hopefully is somewhat of a break over the summer months. We ask that you look over our students, both those that are attending classes this summer and those that are off. We ask that you keep them safe, keep them healthy, keep them ready to learn and come back for more as they further their lives, get degrees to help them in this world, Lord, to help them live a better life for themselves and their families, and to help them be able to invest in our community in better ways. We thank you so much for this group of people here, for the time and effort that they put in to make sure that St. Petersburg College is healthy, that we're moving forward in the right directions, and that we are taking care of our students first and foremost. We thank you for the wisdom that you give us in decision making. We ask that you give us more of that always. We thank you for your grace. It's your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. It looks like we do not have anyone in attendance for our presentation of retirement resolutions this morning. So we will move on to announcements, and I'd like to invite up Dr. Cooper, who will be introducing our acting dean of the College of Nursing.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Williams. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Luisana Lewis. She will be serving as the acting dean for the College of Nursing. She has a master's in nursing from the University of Phoenix, as well as a doctorate in nursing practice from Chatham University, and she has served at St. Petersburg College in several capacities in the College of Nursing, beginning as an adjunct faculty member, then a faculty liaison with Baycare, full-time faculty in our RN to BSN program, as well as an academic chair for our RN to BSN faculty. So would you please welcome Dr. Luisana Lewis. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome. And now I'd like to invite up Dr. Renard.
Good morning, members of the board and Dr. Williams. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Tashika Griffith as the next provost for the downtown, midtown centers, plus the Palladium. Dr. Griffith started with us in 2016. We had, when we advertised this position nationally, 134 qualified candidates, and we narrowed that down to 5 candidates, and then 3. One of those gave her a run for her money. She was the most qualified person. She knows the downtown, midtown community. She knows where we are and where we want to go. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Tashika Griffith.
Good morning. I'm very excited to continue working with the college and with everyone. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Good morning. I am very excited to announce that Dr. Jamel Connor, Dr. Connor, will serve as our new Vice President for Student Affairs at St. Petersburg College. Dr. Connor has been with the college for a while in several capacities, from the district administration area with budget, strategic planning, and finance, on to provost of the St. Petersburg Gibbs campus, and now the VP of Student Affairs. Dr. Connor has public and private leadership skills from the public sector and private sector, and also understands the college, the role of the provost, which is very unique at St. Petersburg College. It's different than everywhere else, as well as the composition of the senior leadership team. And so it is my honor to introduce you to our new VP of Student Affairs, Dr. Jamel Connor.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Williams. I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to serving our students, our community, faculty, and staff in this new capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. With that, we will move on to comments, starting with myself, and surprisingly, I do not have any today. So, any board members, any comments this morning?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning.
Board members. I just was speaking to Dr. Williams. There was an article in the newspaper this week about JP Morgan Chase's investment in the Tampa Bay Partnership and its specific efforts with respect to regional talent and developing talent. And so if you all concur, I'd like to ask Dr. Williams if she could reach out to the partnership. Dr. Ginshaft is the chair of this working committee, and determine how the college's position in Pinellas County and with our workforce development
Exactly.
programs, we can be an active participant in that.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments by any board members? Okay.
All right, my turn. We have been extremely busy over the last month since the last time that we met, moving forward on trying to get enrollment in its proper place and what we need to be focusing on there. We now officially have 5 different food pantries on our campuses at the college to help students who are in need of food and support, and the students are using it quite a bit. Midtown just opened theirs, called Titan's Belly, to help students with food and other toiletries that they need. We also had a great press conference with USF and SPC on, I think, May the 23rd or somewhere around that date, to talk about access to higher education in Pinellas County and how SPC and USF can work collaboratively. Out of that, we will be hiring 2 new advisors that will be funded through state funds to assist with that. We have a meeting already scheduled with the school superintendent to start the pipeline in elementary, middle, and coming all the way up so that we can build that strategic educational ecosystem. We also have a delegation here from Kenya that came from Kenya while we were gone, and we participated in the micro school graduation ceremony, and over 40% of those students raised their hands stating that they're coming to St. Petersburg College. And so I was very pleased to see so many hands, and also having a lot of students come up to me afterwards saying, how do I get started? And so we're going to spend some time with them to build a pipeline to make sure that they're ready to join SPC immediately when they are done. I think that is about it at this point. Oh, one of our State Board of our education students received the Florida State Board of Education Award. Her name is Tamara Taylor, and I got a chance to witness her receiving her award from the state, and it was very exciting to have an SPC student. I believe there were 10 students from K through 12 to college, and SPC had one of them, and we were real proud
That's great.
of her and her work. And that's my report for this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I do not see any public comments in front of me. None have been presented. So with that, we will move on to the review and approval of minutes from our May 2018 meeting. I have a motion on the floor.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. We'll move to monthly reports now. Ms. Gardner, anything to report?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I don't
Good
have a
morning.
report today.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we'll move to our special counsel, and I'd like to call up Mr. Mark Barnaby, if I could.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mark Barnaby, a special counsel in regard to the Marvin Bright matter. It's good to be back. I would like to indicate that and remind you that we've now had an opportunity, hopefully everyone's taken the opportunity to review the recommended order, the exceptions filed by the respondents, The responses to those exceptions that were filed by the college and the recommended disposition in the Bright matter, I have provided you with guidance as to what I think the law is regarding your both responsibilities and leeway in regard to those recommended findings of fact and conclusions of law that were provided by the ALJ, and also responses to possible exceptions that were filed based on my review of those exceptions. I have provided to you two motions to consider. One is basically adopting the recommended order from the ALJ as your final order and bringing that back in a final form. Also the findings, conclusions of law, and also rejecting the exceptions that were filed. The other is if there is significant discussion, because those tend to take a long time. If the board wants to have significant discussions on these matters on specific points and issues, then my recommendation would be for you to set a special meeting to have that discussion, because as much as these folks are all fine folks and might want to hear that, it will take time, and it's a lot of effort and likely to take a while. So those are my two recommendations to you. I'm happy to answer any questions, and hopefully we'd have an opportunity to bring it back if that's the direction you want to go.
Thank you, Mr. Barnaby. I'd like to open it up to any board members with any questions or comments at this time.
Just procedurally, if we have reviewed, do you want to bring this to conclusion today, or we want to come back?
I am hoping for a motion one way or another today based upon the two that have been recommended to us. And if there is more than general question or comment, we will move to push that to another date at a special meeting. If not, there is another motion that has been proposed as well.
Mr. Chair, I've reviewed the memo and read the briefs and feel adequately informed as to the issues surrounding the dismissal of Mr. Bright. I'm going to make a motion now that we request counsel prepare a final order rejecting all exceptions as proffered by the respondent, accepting the administrative law judge's findings of facts and conclusions of law, and adopting his recommendation for dismissal as being the appropriate disposition of this case.
A second.
We have a motion, we have a second on the floor. Any comments or questions before we move to a vote? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. I have my marching orders. I will hopefully see you in a couple of months.
And thank you, Mr. Barnaby, for your time on this. You jumped right in and got us very much up to speed with everything that was going on, and we appreciate that.
I'm happy to help. Thank you. Thank you. Great stuff.
Okay, at this time, we will move to student success and academic achievement with Dr. Coraggio and Dr. Crawford.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chair Stonecipher, members of the board, and Dr. Williams. I'm Sabrina Crawford. I'm here with Jesse Coraggio to give you an update on the development and outcomes of the Strategic Impact Plan. As you know, the Strategic Impact Plan was founded upon President Williams' vision of a community of care in her 4 Cs. Based upon those 4 Cs, a transition team was put together to identify 6 key priorities that the college should be focusing upon. And when you look at these six key priorities, you'll note that they kind of follow through the development of the entire plan in different ways. This was finalized during our December strategic board meeting, where you developed the 3 visionary commitments, the pillars upon which all of our initiatives at the college should be focused: academic excellence, economic mobility, and community engagement. We then sought further input from the community, our staff, our faculty, and our students through focus groups and through survey, an online survey, which totaled about over 2,000 participants providing their input on the different questions that we asked. We brought you this Wordle a few months ago to kind of show you the first words that come to mind when we think of the college, and you can tell that they obviously are indicative of how we feel about ourselves. These next 4 slides kind of show you the analysis of all of the qualitative remarks that came through the focus groups and the online survey, and it's broken into 4 different categories. This first slide shows you 2 emerging themes that really spanned all 3 visionary commitments, and those have to do with collaboration and partnerships and diversity and inclusivity. If you look at the chart above, you can kind of tell the breakdown of the numbers of participants that actually responded to these different types of themes. In regards to academic excellence, there were 3 emerging themes: faculty development, support for students, and improving the classroom experience. In regards to economic mobility, there were 2 emerging themes: the support of the career exploration by students and supportive funding for community involvement in helping students meet those needs that they required in order to be successful in the classroom. And finally, in regards to the community engagement, there were 4 emerging themes. And those had to do with how the college, how to actually identify the specific community needs that exist, how the college already engages out in the community, enabling the college to actually share with the community the different ways that they could be involved with us, and then capturing that engagement with us within the college.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford. So we're excited. I'm about to reveal the new mission, vision, values as we go through. You should have a copy of the new brochure. You should each have gotten a copy of that this morning. We're very excited about that. The marketing team did a good job kind of capturing those thoughts. We're going to essentially go through that, and we created this both to share with you and to share with our external community about all the good work that we've done together. So there was a sequence of 3 collaborative labs. There was about 158 total participants. And the work of this group was to take all of the work that you just heard about, take all the information and collected data that we put together, and present it to them to begin to articulate the structure for our strategic plan over the next 3 years. Here are the results of that work. We have a new vision statement that I'm bringing to you for your approval, as well as the other items in terms of the goals and metrics. The vision statement is a premier college enriching and strengthening lives through a community of care. That's a pretty good vision to move forward with. You see our mission statement: to empower our students and community to achieve success and economic mobility through academic excellence and engagement. And then we have 6 values that we've put together that really define how we will work together and collaborate among ourselves, with our students, and with our community. Those are in the areas of student success, integrity, community focus, growth and empowerment, communication, and finally in the area of equity. And you'll see many of the themes we've operational, each with a statement to describe what that specific value represents, and you'll see there is commonality as you go across the 6 individual values. Our outcomes that we want to accomplish over the 3-year period are to expand and maintain access for students within the community, to increase our student achievement across the institution, and to continue to engage and increase that engagement with the members of our community, both internally and externally. Before I go on to the specific goals under each one of our commitments, do you have any questions about the mission, vision, values, or outcomes that we've stated thus far? Okay, all right, so let's dive into the work that we're going to do over the next 3 years. Under each one of our commitments that were defined by the board, we've established 3 goals. Under academic excellence, we have improve the learning experience, enhance internal and external support for students, and provide strategic professional development for faculty, staff, and students. And then you'll see for each of the pillars as well, we have metrics. So these are the metrics that we want to accomplish over the 3-year period. For each of these metric views, you're going to see baseline data that we've determined. We've picked a point in time. Sometimes we have that information readily available for now. Other times it may be a year old based on when we have access to that data, as well as a target that the institutional research team put together that seemed reasonable over what we can accomplish over the 3-year period. You'll see we have some of our traditional metrics that you've seen before. We start out with information like retention rates, course success rates. We're looking at completion of college level math and English, because we know that's really important when we look at outcomes for students as a lead metric. We have percentage of students visiting the Learning Commons. That's a new metric that really helps us understand how well students are using that. SESI and SENSE are our student engagement surveys. the SESIs for all students and the census for entering students. We've picked one of the categories in each of those surveys, and we'll be evaluating that: active learning for all students and clear and academic pathways for our entering students. Employee satisfaction survey will be a new survey that we're doing, so you notice we don't have baseline information yet for that survey, but we're going to focus both on satisfaction and engagement for our employees, and will be met once we have that baseline data. We'll determine a target for the 3-year period. And then finally, under the area of academic excellence, is transfer rate. So this is the transfer rate of our Associates of Arts students that would be in a typical transfer type program. We have transfer rate to the Florida College System baccalaureates, with the majority of which would be our own students transferring to baccalaureate, and then to the SUS State University systems. Overall, the number you see there is 76.1%, and we hope to get that to 78. Next area is under economic mobility. Here you can see the 3 goals that we've determined. Deliver responsive program planning aligned with jobs and student goals. Increase strategic communications by partnering with educational institutions, businesses, and community resources, and then prepare students for in-demand careers as defined by local workforce needs. So strong tie-in to both our community and our business community specifically. Here's the metrics we have under this area. Again, some traditional things that you're typically used to seeing, like job placement and industry certifications. We'd like to increase the number of students being awarded industry certifications, as well as increase the type of industry certifications that we have available for our students. We have degree and certificate completers. We'd like to increase that number. Percentage of SB students aligned to the targeted occupations list for Pinellas County. That's a new metric. Currently 57.8% are aligned, and we want to move that to 62%. Pinellas County college attainment rate. There you'll see both the rate as well as a corrective measure that Lumina has come up with. And I just point that out because it's really both numbers together. So you've probably heard of the Higher Education Coordinating Committee's 55% college attainment for the state of Florida by 2025. The way you would get that is to add the 7% in addition to what our baseline and target are to reach that number. So we hope to be at 50% over the 3-year period. And then finally, the percentage of adults, you see 18 to 64 in Pinellas County below the poverty line. We hope to reduce that number. The last 2 metrics, we're not by ourselves going to move the needle on. Those are metrics that we believe it's important enough when you as a board put the stake in the ground about economic mobility. This was an opportunity to us to pick some of those larger community, work with our partners, and make a difference. Community engagement, you see the 3 we have: be a catalyst for positive change in our community, develop a 1-year approach that fosters reciprocal relationships between SBC and the community we serve, and then finally align community-wide priorities and needs to achieve common goals. And then we have our metrics here, increasing the number of community visioning events we have, similar to what we've done with the business community in downtown and what we've done in the Greenwood area. A number of community events, both SPC and community hosted, we want to increase. Number of service learning volunteer hours for faculty, staff, and students. We want to improve the economic impact number. This is a calculation. When you've looked at the research, it's about $24. I think it's $24.14. We use that calculation. It's not to pay for the service, it's the impact to the community dollar-wise that would represent. We want to increase that number along with the hours. Number of program advisory committee members, we want to increase the number of programs we have offering. As a result, increase the number of advisory board. The last 3 there, you'll see again, we don't have baseline, so we'll get that when we begin collecting the data. The first is the number of faculty, staff, and students who participate on community organization boards. We know there's a lot. We want to figure out how we begin to capture that information. We also want to make sure when our students, staff are participating, they periodically have their SPC hat on, and we make that recognizable in the community. So we want to gather that information. Number of K-12 students that go to our campuses to visit. We know this is a strong indicator of them ultimately enrolling and then completing with us. We don't know what that number is, but I can tell you just Seminole campus alone, we've had 3,300 fifth graders visit over the last 4 years. So we'll begin to collect that information with middle school and high. And then finally, the number of community events in which SPC is a participant. We'll begin to catalog that information, and then we'll determine a baseline and a target. Any questions?
I have just 1 or 2 quickly on some of the target numbers that we came up with, percentages and specific numbers. Was this, how were those developed? I mean,
So we looked at trend information
Okay.
over the last few years, and then we wanted to stretch ourselves a little bit, so we figured out what was reasonable within that time frame and how do we stretch a little bit beyond what that reasonable amount is.
Okay.
So we did look at that data and make those comparisons.
And just one other question on the, I don't know if this would fit into academic excellence. Is there a way to track the engagement of the students with activities or clubs or things on campus to see how many students are actually
We do that now.
actively a part? Yeah.
Yeah, so we have that kinds of information
Okay.
we're tracking now. It's certainly something, if you like, we can add within our metrics. We currently do a scan system where when we have events, students can scan or enter in their ID and we can track their activity. And we have correlated that with success. If students are active in those activities on campuses, they result in higher success rates.
It may be worthwhile, and this just may be my opinion, I don't know if others are in agreement, to see what that consistently looks like and track that with student success and retention going forward. Because, as you said, I think it's pretty critical that the more involved the students are on campuses and with things going on at SBC, the better they're doing in the classroom.
We will add that.
We do have that in our current retention plan.
Okay.
And we'll bring that back. We did not bring it this meeting because the meeting is very full.
Okay.
The retention and recruitment plan, they're both completed,
Perfect.
and that is in there.
Thank you.
All right, so there is a full, large document, I believe it's 60 pages, that's available on the link on the front page of your brochures. I didn't think everybody wanted to look at that today, but just in case you're curious about the background information.
Okay.
And I want to give a strong thank you to the core team. I mean, we had a lot of people that were involved in this, a lot of moving part over the last few months, but Sabrina Crawford, Dewan Fox, and Ashley Karen were really the core team that helped kind of orchestrate and facilitate all this good work.
Thank you for all your hard work. On the economic mobility, with respect to the goals, one of them is the increasing strategic connections by partnering with educational institutions, businesses, and community resources. Our metrics, and I understand that's a really nebulous one, but there doesn't appear to be a metric to really identify how we're going to measure if we've done that. I suppose, and I say that because like targeting the targeted occupations list is something that's created by a third party. That's not based upon our interaction with businesses. I would just ask what ideas you might have that we can keep track of that so we know that that's what we're doing.
So there is in the interest of time, we wanted to show you kind of the 3-year plan.
Right.
There is a whole layer of this that was done in the last collaborative lab, which is really the specific things that we're going to do in this year, and we're bringing some of that back in the August timeframe to say, what are we going to do? So we've kind of set the goals for 3 years. What are we actually going to do? And each year we'll have new ones. In that, we're going to do some of the things similar to us beginning to collect the information about how we're engaging with the community. We're going to do something similar on the business side.
Okay.
We believe that that's going to help us understand who's connecting and who's making, but also help us be more strategic. So we don't have 3 people in different areas from the college all communicating, saying business goes, wow, you guys were just here, you know?
Yeah.
And so we want to build that together, and that is one of the items that's at that level.
It's really hard to find metrics to identify.
Use,
So.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you know, when my team originally worked to kind of put these metrics together, it was 5 pages of metrics.
Sure.
And I said, you know, really, there's a lot of things that we do and we'll continue measuring, we'll continue disaggregating, but for purposes of this, we need this high-level dashboard that we can share with the board, with the external community on a routine basis of here's where we're making a difference. We can't really share it if it gets, you know, so many metrics. But we are measuring all those things.
I'm real proud of the work that the team has done. One of the things that we committed to the board to keep us accountable is that each month we'll bring one of those metrics in to show, okay, with economic mobility, these are the commitments, here's where we are so far, here's what we're doing over the next couple of months. So you'll see that we're making progress as we go along instead of waiting until the end and saying, how did we do?
Right.
So we'll be bringing those pieces back to you throughout each meeting.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you both so
All right.
much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Need a motion to? we
Approve
need
the
to-
strategic plan.
Do I have a motion to
Yeah,
approve the
motion to
strategic
approve
plan?
the strategic impact plan.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. We will move to our monthly budget report with Ms. Jeanette Hunt at this time.
Good morning, Mr. Chair,
Morning.
Board Trustees, Dr. Williams. This morning, I will give a brief report on our May 31st budget report and also our fiscal year 18-19 other funds budget for the next fiscal year. First, looking at our revenue, I am very excited to report on the first line for our student tuition and fees, our budget of $61.2 million. At the end of this monthly report period, we brought in $61.8 million, which is about $600,000 more than what we budgeted. Included in that, our tuition budget was $50.9 million, and we're projecting to have $51.3 million at the end of the fiscal year. Our next line item is our state funding. Including in this line item is our Florida College system appropriation, our lottery, our performance funding. Also included in this is our industry certifications. In May, we received $513,000 for industry certifications. Overall, our total revenue at the end of this period was $134 million. If you look at our year-to-date percentage, I want to point this out because on the next slide, we're going to compare this to our year-to-date percentages for our total expenditures. You see, as the prior fiscal year, we're at 88%, and this year we are at 93%. Next, taking a look at our expenditures, our total personnel and benefits at $103.4 million. We are approximately 92% through the year. We see here with this rate at 91.4%. Our current expense and capital total about $25 million. As I mentioned on the last slide, if we look at our total operating expense for our prior year, it was 87%. For this year, 89. The variance between our year-to-date percentages for last fiscal year was 1%, and this fiscal year it's 4%. This weighs directly in our reserve reliance, so we budgeted $1.825 million this year to use for the reliance. We will use less than that this fiscal year. Any questions on the budget report? Okay. So I'll move on to our fiscal year 18-19 other funds. I will present specifically our auxiliary fund and our capital outlay fund. Next, you will hear from Brian Miles, who will present our operating fund, and he will also request approval for the operating fund and the capital outlay fund. So next, looking at our auxiliary fund, on the left you see our projected revenue for the fund, which includes our bookstore commissions, it includes royalties, tower leases, and some of our rentals, totaling at $3.4 million. On the right, you see our expenses, including about $240,000 of current expenses, $104,000 for international scholarships for our students, and then $3.1 million that will transfer into our operating fund. So next we'll look at our operating fund, what will be transferred into our operating fund, that $3.1 million. This current year, we budgeted $3.8 million in comparison to what we'll be budgeting for in the next fiscal year. Within that budget, $105,000 of that will support senior citizen waivers. Of our $428,000 budget of student assistance, $230,000 is supported by our auxiliary fund. $300,000 supports our student textbook program. $532,000 for enrollment initiatives and community engagement. And then $1.9 million for academic and institutional program support. This includes things like library resources, summer programs, ethics programs, and other student-focused initiatives, leaving us with a balanced budget. Any questions on the auxiliary fund?
Ms. Cole?
I just have a general question. What's our textbook program?
Our text program historically has been if a student registers by a certain date, they would receive a voucher to our bookstore. We have been looking at and we will be proposing some changes to the program to make it more enhanced and more engaging for the students. So next we have our capital outlay fund. That budget is $39.5 million. Included in that budget revenue, we are expecting $8.3 million for capital improvement fees. Also in that budget, we have received $3.5 million of PICO funding for our St. Pete Gibbs Student Success Center. Including in that budget, we will be using $2.7 million for construction bond payments, $24 million for major construction. That includes the Success Center at St. Pete Gibbs, also the modular project at the Seminole campus. $4.6 million for deferred maintenance and infrastructure. This is mostly funded by what we call our sum of digits or SOTA money. This money is based on the age of the building. Therefore, the older the age of the building, the more money we receive in maintenance. 1.5 for campus projects and miscellaneous. This includes things like we have study room renovations and also career center renovations. A little over $1 million for our internal construction personnel, and $5.3 million for contingency. Any questions on the capital outlay budget? All right, if there are no questions, next you'll hear from Brian, and at the end of his presentation, he will request for approval for the capital outlay and the operating fund. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Chair, Madam President, members of the board. My name is Brian Miles, and this morning I'll be briefing you on the proposed operating budget for fiscal year 18-19. And as Jeanette said, after my presentation, I'll ask you to approve this budget and also the capital outlay budget. Much of this information you have already seen at previous board meetings. The amounts have changed just a little bit as we have honed in on our final estimates for the 18-19 fiscal year. We'll start at the top with student tuition and out-of-state fees. Here, you know that we'll be budgeting down 3% on our enrollment projection for the year. This is a slight increase from where we budgeted down last year. We budgeted 3.5%, and due to the trends that we saw over the course of this year and better than expected enrollment, we're going to take a more favorable position on this line item. The slight increase is also due to projection of increased revenue for post-secondary adult vocational programs, EMT, fire, and also projected tuition increase for workforce non-credit programs, and also due to some online growth that we're experiencing. You're very familiar by now with the shift in monies from the state, from the Florida College System Program Fund and lottery. I've told you at previous meetings that we'll receive $2 million more in lottery over the course of this year and $2 million less approximately from the program fund. So we'll be watching our cash flow through the fall and then eagerly anticipating those lottery funds come February. We're still not clear on where we're ending up on performance funding. We're still in the holding pattern waiting to hear from the state on that. And we will update you with those amounts as soon as we have those. Other revenues, this is indirect costs, interest, our arrangement with Pinellas County School Board, down a little bit in this category. Fund transfers in, this is auxiliary, and as Jeanette just mentioned, we have a decline in our bookstore sales. As enrollment trends down, so does bookstore sales typically. And then, as Jeanette also discussed, we are improving our reliance on fund balance or reserves. We budgeted 1.8 this year. We're budgeting $1 million for the new fiscal year with the expectation to use far less than $1 million in that line item. All that brings us to revenue projections of $142.9 million on the year. Fiscal year 18-19 expense. We'll start at the top, and here you can see that we have significant decrease in expense for all of our personnel categories. This is largely due to recent reorganization efforts and holding on vacancies throughout the year and capturing those lapsed dollars. We're still calculating the final numbers of what our reorganization efforts saved us, But right now, it's looking like we will save approximately $800,000 to $900,000 for those efforts. So good job by the college to help reorganize. More specific details about the reorganization effort will be forthcoming from the President's office and the VPs. We will continue to monitor our personnel expense ratio. At the beginning of this year, we were at 78%. We're currently just above 77% at 77.2. We're also going to continue to monitor our health insurance expense. As you know, we need to make fairly significant changes in the amount of money we're budgeting for this expense. And in just a few minutes, you'll hear from Michelle Mantega, our Senior Manager of Benefits, and she will update you on where we are with our request for proposal for new or continued healthcare services. Later in the year or early in the next fiscal year in August, we will be back in front of you and let you know that plan design changes are likely forthcoming in the new calendar year. Those changes will likely include an increase in the percentage that employees contribute toward this expense. What that ratio will be, we're not sure yet, but we will be back in touch with you on that piece. Toward the middle, before I get to other benefits, you see other personal services, OPS. That expense is currently $2 million. The VP's president and I are talking on how to further reduce this, so we'll continue to work with those efforts to bring down that cost and likely shift some of the expense in that line item to the health insurance, which I said requires a little bit more funding. Other benefits, this is the line item that Ms. Bello asked about last time. This includes retirement expense, it includes employment taxes, it includes compensated absences, and here we're seeing an increase of about $547,000 due to 2 rate increases from the Florida retirement system over the last fiscal year and going into the new fiscal year. So we have to plan accordingly and budget up in that line item. Our current expense of about $29.7 million includes our upgrade of the student system of PeopleSoft 9.0 to version 9.2. And at the last board meeting, I indicated that this is a budgeted expense of anywhere between $1.3 to $1.8 million. On the consent agenda today, you have a memo that asks you to approve an expense not to exceed $1.8 million. Those amounts are captured in that total current expense. Let me go back. All that leaving us with a balanced budget for the year at $142.9 million. As you can see, this is about 1.378 down from where we were last year. And just to refresh your memory, 2 years ago, our budget was at $154 million. So we've really made significant strides in realigning our budget with where we are with enrollment, with where we are in the current economy, with where we are due to state funding. I think this budget accurately represents where we are as an institution and how best to plan for the next fiscal year. Let me just highlight a couple things.
Real quick before you keep going, your figures are different from our figures. Are your figures the up-to-date?
Yes, these should be the up-to-date. I'm not sure why you have different
So
figures,
I shouldn't look
but
at my screen. Okay.
we'll get you the updated copy. I apologize for that inconvenience. Just a couple positive indicators that I'd like to share with you. Number one, you heard Jeanette mention our reliance on fund balance. We committed to you in the 3-year financial plan a year and a half ago that we would reduce our reliance so that in year 3, which comes up in 2020, I believe, we would have 0 reliance on our fund balance as a line item in our operating budget. We are gradually getting there, and I'm very happy about that. Number 2, a slightly better projection on enrollment this year than what we had last year. That's due to the college's efforts to retain the students that we have and also attract new students. We're hoping in the next fiscal year to perform even better than what we're budgeting for as we did this year. And third and finally, I'll mention that last year we planned for contingency funds by capturing lapse dollars over the course of the year, meaning we intended not to fill a certain number of vacancies so that we could capture some funds so that if we had an emergency, we had some money to throw at that emergency. This year, we're actually able to budget for a $800,000 contingency with actual revenue dollars. So small wins, but indicators that this budget is moving in the right direction. And at this point, unless you have questions, I would like to ask for your approval of not only the operating budget, but also the capital outlay budget.
Are there any questions at this time from the board members? I'll just say, Brian, to you and your team and everyone involved, I know this has not been easy over the last 2 or 3 years to have to cut back as significantly as we have, and there's still work to be done, obviously, but we appreciate the work you've put in. I think we're heading in the right direction, and I like the indicators of where we're going and building back up where we've been taking away for so long, so thank you for that. I'd ask for a motion at this time for the proposal.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a first, I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you for your continued support.
Okay. We'll move to administrative matters at this time. There is a personnel report in your packet that you all have reviewed. I would ask for a motion to pass that report as presented.
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we will move to health insurance with Ms. Mantega.
Good morning, Dr. Williams, Trustee Stone-Cipher, members of the board. I'm Michelle Montega. This morning I'll be giving you an update of our results from our RFP. To recap, we published our request for proposals on March 5th. The deadline for proposals was March 26th, and all of our SPC employee benefits were advertised for bids. We asked carriers to meet or exceed our current benefits. We had a healthy number of responses to our proposals. As you can see, we solicited bids for both fully insured and self-insured medical plans. You can also see all the other responses we received. From these responses, the vendors we selected for the 2019 plan year are as follows. Aetna was selected to remain our carrier for the medical and dental plans. For vision, we were changing to IMED. For the life insurance, staying with Hartford. For the disability insurance, changing to Hartford. For our health accounts, which make up the flexible spending account, our health savings account, medical expense reimbursement plan, we will be staying with our current carriers, which is Custom Benefits and PayFlex. For our employee assistance program, changing to Deer Oaks. And then for our work site, which makes up your cancer insurance, hospital insurance, things like that, staying with Allstate. For our next steps, we'll be notifying the carriers of our selections, and then we'll be working on our plan design changes for the 2019 plan year. Over the next 2 months, we'll be working on aligning our medical plan cost with the actual expenses we're incurring from those claims. Those changes will be necessary in order to keep up with the increase in our claim spend. We'll be bringing you those plan design changes at the August board meeting for approval, and then after approval, we'll be implementing. Any questions? Short, sweet, and to the point. So.
I just have one question. So at the August meeting, we will have the information provided to us before that meeting, of course. We'll be able to kind of pick it apart, ask any questions. Mm-hmm. Is there going to be any chance to make changes to that plan, or are you looking for a vote at the August meeting?
We will give you the information as far ahead of the meeting as possible. Ideally, we'll be looking for approval at the August meeting because we're anticipating significant changes, so we'd like to have plenty of time to inform employees. But of course, if it's not approved, then we'll make those changes and then come back in September with those changes.
I would just request that we get it as quickly as possible, because I know there's going to be a lot to dig through and look at. And I think as a board, there's going to be a lot to
You want a special meeting?
decide. I don't know if we need a special meeting at this point. Let me think about that. I think as a board, there's going to be a lot to decide as far as how much we need to chip away now to make sure that we get ahead of the direction we've been headed in with increased health insurance costs and claims to right-size what we have going on. And I just want to make sure we all have enough time to look over that. Mr. Givens?
What exactly are we approving today?
We're not approving anything today.
Okay.
Carriers.
We
Yeah,
are
just-
approving something.
Just the carrier.
Oh, I'm sorry, the
Yeah, but
carriers.
why would we approve carriers before we know what the carrier is going to provide? That's like the.
Give you authorization to negotiate? Is that
Yeah,
what-
we have to select the carriers in order to move forward with the plan design changes. So with staying with Aetna, we'll be looking at plan design changes that we can make within staying with Aetna.
Okay. I don't understand that. Like, why wouldn't you talk to 5 companies now instead of one and see and negotiate your way through it before you select one? But
Well, that piece has already been done, correct?
They've already
Correct.
Yeah.
Part of the
companies.
RFP was that they analyzed our plans and then gave us their responses based off of our current plans and what that cost would look like for future years.
okay.
Any other questions? With that, I'd ask for a motion to approve new carriers and incumbent carriers as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you. Dr. Cooper.
Chair Stonecipher, members of the board, and Dr. Williams, it's my pleasure this morning to present to you our new faculty cohort for the 18-19 academic year. I'd like to begin by explaining the thorough process that we go through before we bring these recommendations forward to the board. We begin by reviewing the faculty chair diversity within each of the departments. Then we make sure that the search and screen committee are diverse as well. Then the search and screen committee will review the applications and bring forward 5 to 6 choices to the dean. The dean will then consolidate those choices, and various candidates will go through, in many instances, 2 levels. We might begin with a Skype interview, and then they'll select a number of candidates to bring forward to bring in to interview in a face-to-face environment, as well as have each of those individuals present a teaching demo. Then the final candidate is also interviewed by the provost of the campus that they will be housed on. And then finally, that final candidate comes forward, and Dr. Williams and myself interview them as well to make sure that they are a good fit for St. Petersburg College. And so these are the recommendations that we're bringing to you today. We have 11. 3 of them are academic chairs, and these are the individuals. As you can see, 9 of them have master's degree, 2 have doctorates, previous teaching experience anywhere from 5 to 20 years. 7 were previous adjuncts, 3 current faculty moving into chair positions, and 1 new to St. Petersburg College. In regards to gender, 10 of them are female and 1 male. However, I do want to share with you that 2 of the females are in public safety, which is not that easy to find, and the male is in nursing, which also is more difficult to find. In regards to
Real quick, is this group supposed to be diverse itself? Because, I mean,
right.
No offense to females. Love the female. At a 10-to-1, I guess I don't understand.
Well, I think if we go back to the particular programs that we're looking at, we are always looking to increase diversity. And so by bringing another male into nursing, we are increasing the gender diversity in that particular area. By bringing females into public safety, we're increasing the gender diversity in that area. And again, as far as the multiracial, they are both in nursing as well as in public safety. And so I think it's important to look at each of the specific departments overall, and if you would like more information on each of those, I can bring those to you as well.
So what
Pointed
we-
out, I didn't see diversity. So-
Yeah.
I mean, I saw ethnic, which is fine. but-
Right. What we try to do, Trustee Foster, is sometimes when you look at a department itself at a campus, you may see that that particular department is 80% male. So if you get a female in that department, then it's diverse. What you're looking at is the class itself, but they're all dispersed in different areas and different departments, and you would see the diversity in those departments. The same question that you asked is the same question that I had, and we went through that.
So overall, what do we look like when you add 10 women to the faculty? What does our faculty look like? Is it 70-30 male or female or what?
I have to get that information for you. I'll be glad to provide it to you. Once the faculty come on board, they will be in a 2-year process for a professional development. This will be put on by our Center of Excellence for Teaching and Learning, supported by online services as well as HR, and the department itself that they are joining. They'll obviously learn how to use our learning management system. There'll be various departmental mentoring as well as ongoing support. Then in their first year, they are going to meet on a monthly basis, and they will visit each of the campuses, and during those sessions, they'll learn about promising practices or best practices for increasing student success and retention, understanding our SPC student population, as well as collaboration and service. Then in their second year, they choose a particular project within the academic area to investigate and recommend solutions for. And in many instances, those are incorporated. So for example, we've had groups become part of writing the accreditation for our recent SACS reaccreditation. We've also had a team look at the syllabus and recommend best practices in regards to how to create a syllabus. Any other questions?
Any other questions from the board at this time? With that, I'd look for a motion to approve the new faculty cohort recommendations as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a first, I have a second. Any other questions or comments before we vote?
Just along the same lines as the other two comments, next year when we get this, can we see what the overall faculty
I'll get it
discussion
for
is?
you.
That'd be great.
I had
It'd
hoped
make
to
me
have
more
that this
comfortable to vote
morning,
on
but
it.
my
Yeah.
email was not loading.
Understood.
Sorry.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move to the consent agenda. I would ask the board if they have any specific questions relating to the consent agenda. And then we will take this in one group for a motion to approve, please.
I have one.
Sure.
Agenda item, Roman numeral 7B5A.
You get accounts and receivables write-offs.
Yeah, what's a typical write-off?
It's coming up.
Sitting in the back row. What's a typical write-off that we see?
Sure. probably the majority of our write-offs are financial aid repayment, and that situation occurs when a student enrolls, let's say, full-time, subsequently withdrawals from classes after financial aid is dispersed. And at that time, we have to repay the U.S. Department of Ed a portion of their federal aid, and then we then collect from the student. Those are obviously difficult debts to collect because many times we don't see the student again.
What efforts do we make for third-party collection? I saw that, we went a little over due to lower than expected third-party collection. What efforts are made with third-party collection?
Well, we do internal billing initially. We give the student approximately 2 weeks. This is well past their due date. And then we have a pre-collections company that does multiple billings and phone calls. And that's over a 5-week period. If we still are unsuccessful in collecting, they're turned over to an actual collection agency. We currently have 3 agencies under contract. We're evaluating those 3 agencies, and we're looking to make potential changes. There's a new state contract out, so we're able to move into that a new contract with some new agencies. I will tell you that the write-off for next year is looking much better, and that's certainly part of it is due to the economy. As students go back to work, we collect more money. Obviously, they have income to pay their debts.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board on the consent agenda?
Move approval?
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
You're going too fast, Mr. Chair. You're too efficient.
We've got 2 meetings today.
Yes.
That's true.
With that, we'll move to, as we have no informational reports, President's report.
Yes, I want to let the board know that we did double check on the $3.5 million from the state through the FEMA funds. Those funds have been received by the state, and they should be given to us within a couple of weeks, I was told. And SPC is still on the books for receiving that to finish the Gibbs building, so I was very excited with that. We also have, I believe, Trustee Cole, you had asked about the footprint study and where we are. We're in phase 2 of the footprint study, where we're looking at all of our facilities and buildings and programming and what we'd like to do. We have 45 more days, so for the August meeting, phase 2's review should be done, and we'll be able to bring that forward for us to have a robust discussion on. So I was very excited about that. So we'll be bringing that back to you, and we'll be focusing on the enrollment for the next couple of weeks, focusing hard on getting our enrollment up and getting things ready for the fall term. Our new student enrollment, the good news is that is increasing for our new students. It's getting our current students to get registered and to get moving. So looking at some different strategies there that was also included in the recruitment plan. Because each term we re-recruit our students to come back. We may not think of it that way, but we do. We are re-recruiting them, getting them to come back again. So we'll be focusing on that going forward. So that's my report.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions for the president? Our next meeting will be in August on the 21st, right here at the Epicenter. We will be adjourning this meeting in just a few seconds, and then we will be opening our St. Petersburg Collegiate High School Governing Board meeting. Thank you all for being here. And we will open our St. Petersburg Collegiate High School Governing Board meeting. Principal Metz, great to see you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Williams. I'm Starla Metz. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this morning to bring forth some highlights of the year, current initiatives, and a proposed budget for the 2018-19 school year. Some honors for the year include SPCHS being selected as a 2017 exemplary high-performing National Blue Ribbon School. We once again are ranked a bronze level school by U.S. News and World Report based on our students' strong academic performance. The state of Florida has a new award, and we have received the School of Excellence Award. This is based on the percentage of points that each school earns in the state school grading calculation formula. And finally, another new award this year is Great Schools has named SPCHS to the inaugural cohort of College Success Award recipients. We were among high schools across 9 states. The reason this is significant is because potential businesses and families look at great schools when they're trying to determine the quality of schools in a new area, and it is often linked to residential real estate listings. So we are hoping that this award will help increase visibility for the SPC and SPCHS websites and encourage families and businesses to check us out. At St. Petersburg Collegiate High School, we focus on scholarship, service, and leadership. And the class of 2018 was very involved in both high school and college clubs and organizations, as well as in their community. On the top left, you will see some of our students who help sort toys at the Toys for Tots Distribution Center. On the top right, you will see some of our students participating in one of our many beach and park cleanups. We had our seniors gave over 12,000 hours of community service during their high school years. 59 of our seniors served as leaders in either college, high school, or community clubs or organizations. Our 80 seniors qualified for $2 million in scholarships, and I'm very grateful that 4 of our seniors received the SPC Presidential Scholarship, and 8% of our students will stay right here at SPC to complete their baccalaureate programs. Some current initiatives. As you all know, Pinellas County Schools approved our application to replicate on the Clearwater campus. And so Provost Vitito, myself, Diana Wright, and Charm Callahan walked the Business Technology Building on the Clearwater campus, which is where we are planning to house the new collegiate high school. We're taking a look at what minor remodeling might need to take place to get that facility ready for opening in August 2019. Suzanne Gardner received the contract from Pinellas County Schools, and she is reviewing that. She plans to bring that contract to the board in August for your review and approval. And then some next steps are we'll continue to work on the facilities to get the Business Technologies building ready for opening. We also will begin recruitment efforts in November. We will mail a letter to all of the families of Pinellas County Schools who have children in high school, telling them about the program and inviting them to one of our information sessions. That will be followed up with a postcard that will be mailed on January 2nd. We will hold 5 formal information sessions, one at Tarpon, Clearwater, Seminole, St. Petersburg Gibbs, and the Allstate Center. We will also hold several small group or one-on-one sessions to be sure that all the families who need information about the program are well informed. In January and February, we'll begin to take a look at posting the positions for the Clearwater campus.
Principal Metz, can I ask one quick question?
Yes, sir.
Are these steps to get the word out as to the new Clearwater campus and what our collegiate high school program looks like? Are these similar to what was done years ago when we first opened the Gibbs campus?
I can't speak to years ago because I've been here 10 years and the collegiate high school has been here a little longer. But word is out already, and I think that the nice thing about this is what we normally do. We are going to recruit for both schools at the same time, allowing families to make a preference in terms of their first choice. Mm-hmm. That will safeguard us in case the Clearwater campus does not fully fill. St. Pete Gibbs usually has a very long wait list. Then we can go to the students on the wait list at St. Pete Gibbs and say, you know, you're number 35 on the wait list, but I have an opening at Clearwater. Would you like to go to Clearwater? It also allows us, the application deadline is February 8th. And we usually know by the first week in March the students who have accepted. So before we would hire any personnel, we will know exactly how many students we have at the Clearwater campus and how many students we have on the wait list. So I feel like we have a good plan going forward. However, if we feel that we're not getting enough applicants, we can continue to recruit as long as we need to make sure that we're full.
Perfect, thank you.
Absolutely. The State Bill 7026 was signed into law and this year, and so before we open the school in 2018, we need to make sure that all schools have an armed safe school officer. And so to help us with that, the Sheriff's Office is facilitating the Guardian Program. We have submitted 3 applicants for the Guardian Program training. It will include all of the necessary background screening that needs to occur, as well as training similar to that a new deputy would receive. And that training will begin on July 2nd. We have submitted 2 of our current officers that are currently at the St. Petersburg Gibbs campus. One has a military background, the other one is a former police officer, as well as Dan Bartow, who would like to go through the training. Once they graduate from the program, they will be certified, and we will have a safe school officer who is the primary, and then a relief officer. So if the primary officer is out, we will have the relief officer step in. Because of the certification and because they will be armed, they will have a supplemental pay. The collegiate high school will pay for the supplemental pay for the 2 officers, as well as all the training, and will pay for all the equipment designated by the Sheriff's Department. We also have a school safety assessment tomorrow morning that will occur in collaboration with Pinellas County Schools, St. Petersburg College personnel, a representative from the St. Petersburg Police Department, and a representative from the Sheriff's Office. This is happening at all of the schools. The purpose is to make sure that our facilities are as safe as possible for our students and staff. We have always done safety drills each month at the collegiate high school, but the new requirement is that we will be providing training each month on active shooter situations, and so we will do the training. That will be facilitated by the Sheriff's Office, and St. Petersburg Police Department will be a part of our drills and give us feedback. So we will have a safe shooter drill every month, a fire drill, and a bad weather drill every single month, and a lockdown drill. And so we will be doing that with our students. Some good news, in March we had our SACS reaccreditation site visit. It was a wonderful visit, and today they are voting on our reaccreditation, as they are everyone else's, and so in about 6 weeks we will get our formal letter indicating that we are accredited and the formal certificate. And then finally, I would like to bring forth a proposed budget for your review, and I am requesting approval. And I know that's really tiny, but you have a copy of it. So if you take a look at the 2 budgets year over year, you will see that we have increased the budget for next year by approximately $68,000. That is to take care of the cost of the safe school officers and their training and equipping the officers. Other than that, the budgets are very close. You will see that we are anticipating the total revenue at $1.5 million, the total personnel cost at just about $1 million. Current expense would be $535,000 for a total budget of $1.5 million. You will also notice at the very bottom that our reserves are very high, but keep in mind that those reserves are what is going to pay for the second collegiate high school to get up and running, and so those will decrease significantly. However, we will be sure that we keep a reserve fund for the St. Pete campus so that we are safeguarding that budget as well. Also know that I'm a very conservative resource manager, and I will make sure that we come in at or under budget. Do you have any questions for me?
I move approval, but I do have a question.
Go ahead. Yeah, we'll second.
Yeah, second for discussion. I was waiting.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Mr. Metz. I have 2 questions. One is, you said the St. Pete Police and the Sheriff's Department. Are we not having the Clearwater Police involved in it? It's only because we don't have that school up and running yet? Is that
Right.
right? Okay.
So once we open up the second campus, then we will have, again, 2 safe school officers, and then Clearwater Police or the Sheriff's Department would be involved in that.
And then the second question is, and it may be more to Mr. Bartow, I'm not sure, for planning purposes, will the new collegiate high school along, since we have very open campuses, where we have single point of entry, and what will be the entry plan for getting in and out of those areas? Do we have a process for that?
Yes, we do. We've already looked at the building, and so in the BT building, we have a side entrance that's on Old Coachman, and that will be the single entry point, and we are looking at the principal's office and the receptionist being right there, so we can see who walks into the building. The two side doors will remain locked, so there'll be one way in. Predominantly, all the students will be on the second floor. All of our sophomores, our juniors and seniors, of course, are out on the campus. But there will be one entry in with those doors remaining locked, and it's highly visible as they walk in. So we'll be keeping an eye on the front door.
And we will do the same, have we done the same assessment for the Gibbs campus, for where we are?
That's what we're doing tomorrow morning, is we're taking a look at the Gibbs campus, and we're talking about what can we do to be sure that we are as safe as we possibly can. We've already had some preliminary conversations with Bill Gray and a small team. Dan Bartow was part of that. Provost Connor was a part of that. But tomorrow, that's what the whole purpose is for those who are more skilled than I am, looking at facilities and making sure that we're safe, to give us feedback. There is a state survey that I will complete, as all principals will. And then if there are things that need to be done, there will be $100 million in grant dollars, and we can apply for some of those grant dollars as we go forward in the process.
And the reason I ask that question is we have so many people that can walk on campus from anywhere. We just don't, there's no way of knowing. I was talking to Governor Scott Friday, and one of the things that he said is, we always looked at schools in the Northeast. Then we say, oh, well, that's not good because they don't have all these sprawling schools, right? Well, it ended up being better for them because they have a single point of entry. It's hard to get into the school. Just want to make sure that if there are things that we need to do, we apply for that pot of money to make sure that we can get some of that, but also to make sure that we're talking about high schoolers, we're talking about 10th graders. A lot of our students are older and they're on campuses, and they can, well, we don't want any incidents, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that the high schoolers are, that we don't have some angry kid who didn't get in, or whoever individual be able to get into where the high schools students are, and we have an obligation to protect them a little bit more, I think, than other students, while we should be protecting everybody. So I just wanted to make sure that we really assess what we currently have to make sure that everybody is safe in the environment. So
I understand Dr. Ian Call and my guidance counselor and I, who comprise my leadership team, already attended a one-day full session through Pinellas County Schools. There will be ongoing training, so we'll continue to become more skilled, and certainly we'll take any suggestions very seriously to make sure that our students and staff are safe.
And it's a shame that we even have to look at this, but it's a fact that we got to live with.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbons. I have a motion on the floor and a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Principal Metz, for your leadership.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we will close our St. Petersburg Collegiate High School Governing Board meeting. Thank you all very much.